The value of reconnecting with people is often overlooked when people are thinking about networking in our business world. In this age of the pandemic and social distancing, one of the things that I have discovered is that there is so much value in reaching out to people who you used to be connected with and rebuilding those relationships. The term dormant ties comes from Rutgers researcher Daniel Levin. And this is more than a decade ago that I first read about this, but in his research, he showed that it is easier to reconnect with someone who you used to have a great business relationship than it is to start from scratch and build a relationship with someone who you've never met before. Now, when it comes to networking and building relationships in today's kind of crazy world, both are important. But for today, for this video, I want to focus on why you should reach out to people who maybe you've lost contact with, but who you once had those connections. I really have two reasons why I think this is important. The first one is they're going to be glad to hear from you. So often people will tell me, now wait a second, I haven't talked to this person in 3, 4, 5 years, or maybe longer. If I reach out, maybe they'll think it's weird, or they'll think I'm reaching out with an ulterior motive to try to sell something to them or get their help. Well, yes, if you are reaching out only for that purpose, that kind of comes off as smarmy and one-sided. But if you're reaching out because you really would like to rekindle that relationship, think about it in reverse. What if you received an email or a text, or even better, a phone call from someone who you used to be connected to, who you've lost touch with, not through any falling out or anything negative, just life took you in different directions. Imagine who that person is, and what if they reached out and called you? Would you be like, how dare you call me? Go away, boom. Or would you be thrilled to hear from them? In most cases, it's the latter. So reach out to them because they're going to want to hear from you too. If you had a good relationship, they might be sorry that you drifted apart just the same. The second reason is that the history that you have together gives you a foundation that can more quickly lead you to the type of long-term and mutually beneficial relationship that leads to opportunity. Now, so often people think of networking and building business relationships, they think of it as transactional, that you do it when you need a job, or you do it if you're in sales. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about building relationships where 2 or more people are always going to find more success because they have that relationship than if they existed without it. So look to those dormant ties and start thinking about, who should I reconnect with? So here's a great idea. As soon as you finish watching this video, open up LinkedIn and pick a letter. Let's say you pick the letter M. Now, go to your LinkedIn contacts and either by first name or last name, sort them by M. Now, start going through everyone who you're connected to. Now, if you're like me, most of the people that you're connected to in LinkedIn, you have met at some point along your career. I try very hard not to just reach out to anybody just because they breathe air. So I have sort of a policy that is when I connect to somebody on LinkedIn, I like the fact that before I accept that connect or I send a connection request, I like it that we've sat down and had a real conversation, something like over a cup of coffee, a meal, or a beer. I call this the coffee, meal, or beer rule. So if I pull up M, most of the people, there's always exceptions, but most of the people, at some point, I have had a real life conversation with. Now start going through all of those contacts and writing down the people who you haven't had any connection with in a year or more, where you really should have. There's total synergy of why the two of you should be connected. And make a list. Pick out about 5 to 10 people who you've lost contact with, who in this case, their letter all starts with M, and then begin to reach out to them. You can send them an email or a text. I say you pick up the phone and call them. In most cases, you're just going to get their voicemail anyway. But no matter what, say something to the effect of, hey, you crossed my mind today. Don't tell them I was watching a video on the future of business relationships, and the guy who created the video said to look up people whose first name starts with M, and your name is Mike. So that's how you came about. You don't have to tell them that part. Just say, you crossed my mind today, and I realized it has been a year or 2 years or longer since we've connected. And if you reach out to 10 people in this manner, then sit back and wait and see what the response is. I'll be honest, in many cases, you'll get no response or they'll send you a "thanks for thinking of me, great to hear from you" with no action. But if you reach out to 5 or 10 people, maybe one of those people will be like, "Oh my gosh, I am so glad to hear from you. Why don't we have a deeper conversation?" And then you move that conversation over to the phone or Zoom, or if they live locally, set up a time to go and meet with them. Reactivating dormant ties can be such an important thing to help you grow your business network. And in this world where we've been asked to socially distance for so long and in-person corporate events aren't happening, they're being virtual, or they're being canceled at the last minute, now is the time that you need your business relationships more than ever. So that's my advice for you in this video. Reach out to a few people. And if you get one who you can connect with, then tomorrow pick the letter R. And who knows, maybe Rebecca will call you back. The next day then you pick the letter B and Bobby will call you. And the next day you pick D and Diane and David call you back. If you do that, in 26 days, you could have reconnected with a dozen or 24 people. Because as I said, not everyone's going to call you back. And some people, they're just going to be like, "Hey, good to hear from you." And they don't really care. Awesome. Let them not care. Move on. You don't have time for the people who don't want to engage with you. But when you get somebody who says, "I want to reactivate this friendship, this connection," make sure that you take ownership of it and that you do the give and take back and forth to get that relationship going again. And let me know what happens. If you reach out to people and you have a real positive, tell me what it is. When I do individual coaching, mainly with lawyers, about their business development skills, they're always amazed how when they do an exercise like this and they reach out to those dormant ties, how often people are so happy to hear from them. And in today's world, people sometimes maybe need to know that someone thought of them. Someone might need that happiness to feel like they were the center of attention just for a couple of seconds. So I have a question for you. Why would you cheat all those people out of hearing from you when you might be exactly what they need to brighten their day? And then as you build that relationship and start working on that network, one of those people or more could lead to opportunities that could change your career and your life. And it all starts because you took ownership of reactivating those dormant ties.